A decade ago, we ventured into focal therapy for prostate cancer. 5 years ago, we junked our machine. It was an older HIFU generation machine, but now we are really keen to go that way again. So in next few minutes, I'll try to take you through what's going on in our mind, what we are seeing, and what's forcing us to think differently now. And let's see if I can hold your attention. So my topic is focal therapy will less defeat more. I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. So let's talk about more first. What do we know after 3 decades of mainstreaming of prostate cancer surgery? What have we learned so far? So SPCG4 trial, I would call it the single most best hallmark trial that we have, where we compared radical prostatectomy to watchful waiting. And this trial was significant because 700 patients were randomized, and these patients had palpable tumors. Majority of them were palpable tumors. You would operate these patients if they would come in your practice even today. Most of them were more than Gleason grade 6, and look at the result. So 6.6% survival, prostate cancer specific mortality difference at the end of 8 years. So does it really impress you somewhere? When the initial paper was published, the overall survival difference was not at all there. It was a negative trial on that aspect, and after 3 decades of follow-up, nearly 29 years, we were able to prove, yes, there was an overall survival difference, but look at the magnitude. You need to live a decade to experience 1 year of extended survival. So at the end of 29 years, you have 2.9 years of extra survival for that cohort. So this is the reality of surgery after 3 decades of experience. What happens if we begin catching patients earlier? And this is the holy grail of cancer. We want to catch them earlier. So the PROTECT trial, and look at it. So we screened more than 82,000 people. We found 1643 patients, and then this figure stares at you. Surgery, radiation, and active monitoring. When you talk about prostate cancer specific survival, same flat line. I mean, screening, if per se we do large population-based screenings, we had our trials, PLCO, ESR, SPC, and then the latest one from UK cluster randomized CAP trial where more than 4 lakh patients were screened. Results same. You detect more cancers, but then the survival didn't budge. And this is more than 10 years of experience with that trial follow-up. So why do we see all this? And it can be unnerving to few. It is all because of disease heterogeneity. And SPCG trial gave that answer to us. So patients who were Gleason 3 to 6, if we take them as baseline, unless the Gleason really rises 4 plus 3 or it becomes 8 or 9, that is when you actually see 10 times or 20 times mortality difference. Other than that, it's quite the same. And extracapsular extension. So when the cancer is showing a tendency to go out, that is where, yes, the survival would change. But otherwise, they just do well anyways. So patients are our teachers. So what have these patients taught us? 695 in SPCG, thousands in PROTECT, and hundreds of thousands in CAP trials. We have saved few. And nearly all experience morbidity of treatment. So, and these trials do not really solve many dilemmas that we face. So for example, SPCG4 will tell you, you need to live a decade to experience 1 year of extended survival. So how do we decide a patient coming in at 70, how much will he live? I mean, what data do we have to exactly answer that question? Do we even have models for Indian population, or we just make a subjective choice? And the PROTECT trial, so it would say that active monitoring was equally effective, but then 50% of the patients went from the active monitoring arm to the radical prostatectomy arm, a radiotherapy arm. And then they also experienced lower failure-free survival. So could we not have treated those patients earlier? Would they not have done better? Because only a decade of follow-up is there. Now, what if 2 decades later we say, oh, sorry, you would have lived longer? And then PSA screening, it will throw us, opportunistic or whatever you choose, it will throw you, wealth of patients at you whom you would not know what exactly to offer. So we need to revisit our drawing board and consider, what do we know about prostate cancer? It is a multifocal disease. There is an index lesion which confers the primary risk. of oncological outcomes. So there is a theoretical lower probability of same functional outcome with lower morbidity if we can treat that lesion. This we have known since 2 decades now. And there are multiple options that have been available. We started, the earliest one was probably HIFU, and then there are lasers, cryo, brachy, electroporation, and whatnot. So are all options really the same? So let's start with HIFU first. It is most commercially supported entity we have, but then the depth of penetration for that machine is 4 centimeter for most platforms. Anterior lesions can get impossible to target, though we have now transurethral HIFU available. And real-time monitoring is limited to observing echogenicity if you are using ultrasound guidance. If you are using MRI with thermometry, yes, you can see those temperature changes. For focal laser ablation, there is even less data, but then you get a well-defined lesion where you have ablated, and you can see it in real time with MRI. It can be done under local anesthesia. And there is no limit to any region of the prostate that you can target, and large-scale studies with focal laser ablation are presently underway. Cryotherapy has of late become stigmatized because of the whole gland cryotherapy data where there was some rectal fistula and a lot of erectile dysfunction. So it has gone out of vogue somewhat with main centers. Photodynamic therapy, it is actually a very well-studied modality in short to intermediate term. We even have a randomized trial where patients, Inderbir Singh Gill, he reported in Journal of Urology in 2018, so 413 men randomized to photodynamic therapy and active surveillance. And look at the results. So we know around 4 years, 50% would switch from active surveillance to surgery. In the photodynamic therapy arm, that percentage was around 25%. So half of the patients were, saved the morbidity of a radical treatment. And the other outcome parameters were quite the same. You had better functional outcomes. So in general, if you have to carry an impression of focal therapy, you can take you from HIFU, which has the most robust data. More than 60,000 patients have now undergone HIFU in various parts of the world. There was a systematic review in 2017 with 3230 patients, lots of studies. So the key points were this. After HIFU, there is a talk about residual remaining cancer, but when you actually do a radical prostatectomy on them, you find that the significant cancer risk is quite low. Actually, it's 0%. That was the summation of 4 phase 1 studies, while 23.3 would be clinically insignificant cancers there. Probability of transition to secondary local treatment is 7.8%, and we all know in our practice, the failure rates with surgery or radiation, it's quite comparable. Significant adverse events quite low, 1.5%, but look at the main thing, pad-free continence and potency preservation. So 100% and 88.6%. The other potency preservation I actually envy. So what about long-term outcomes? Since focal therapy has been there now, we now have from Hashim Ahmed's group more than 5-year data for this. So their primary outcome was failure-free survival, and the outcome was 99%. When you looked at other parameters, metastasis, cancer-free, and overall survival, 98, 199, I don't think it can get better. So some nitty-gritty stuff we should know before counseling our patients. So candidate selection, you should have an unambiguous index lesion. So there are various controversies in what is an unambiguous lesion, but the priority, so you have to see whichever lesion is extraprostatic extension, that is first priority. Then higher Gleason on your mapping biopsy. Second priority, if no lesion with EPE. Third one would be the tumor volume. So this is the order of priority which you would give, even, and you use the same during surgery also. So some would have said a lesion of more than 0.5 cc, you can go higher also, 1.3 cc. So minimum criteria should be a lesion more than 0.5 centimeter and Gleason grade 4 or more. So there is no need to treat Gleason 6. Any upper limit to tumor size? Yes. And you fix it at 12 mm, but individual experience can matter there. You can, ablate almost whole gland with even larger lesions. So it is very, very, very essential. This is why we are now revisiting her, because now we have started doing MRI fusion biopsies and we are mapping our prostates better. We are doing better biopsies. We know better what we are dealing with where. And that is essential for the success of focal therapy also. So when you are reporting an MRI for a focal therapy intent, make 2 experienced radiologists talk and discuss and reach a consensus. Both should have an experience of more than 50 individual MRIs. If you achieve all this, the negative predictive value would exceed 95%, which is good. So is there any contraindication? See, image and biopsy should match, but if they don't match, treat biopsy, not the image. There are various templates to focal therapy. There is no clear consensus whether hemi is better, almost whole gland is better. But as our experience has grown, more and more focal, focal targeted ablation is coming to vogue. Now, following up these patients is a challenge in itself because the gland is still there, quite a part of it. So PSA, you won't have those 0.2 values all the time. And Astro and Phoenix criteria have been used to detect recurrence, but I would say a rising PSA trend is of more value. Again, MRI comes into picture again. A rising PSA, do an MRI, see what's happening to the prostate, any new thing coming up, target the ablation zone, 4 to 6 cores, target the center of the zone, 1 core. This is what you do with a regular MRI fusion biopsy. Also, 4 cores per lesion is now the standard. So like I said, so low intermediate risk cancer, this is what is the current practice world over, wherever they are following. But there is another great scope in elderly. So the same thing, the SPCG4 trial. What do you do with a 70-year-old patient walking into your clinic who wants a chance at life? So this prospective study, patients more than 70 years, they prospectively allocated to 2 arms, HIFU or a radical prostatectomy. And look at the results. So salvage-free treatment survival was 93.4 in radical prostatectomy, which is fine. But look at HIFU, 75%. 75% of patients more than 70 years could avoid any other treatment, which is, I would say, p-value is okay, more for MIRP, radical prostatectomy, but 75% is a very good figure. So with relaxation of screening outcomes, you will see, more and more of such patients coming to you. And also, if you are planning to adopt this, man is more important than the machine. There are a lot of technicalities to HIFU, but then you need to have the requisite experience, otherwise you won't get those results. And these are exciting times for focal therapy. We are getting better and better at imaging our prostates, at knowing what we are doing. So with MRI, there are still hurdles to cross. 10% of the lesions the MRI will miss. The low-grade lesions, MRI will not pick them at all. So Gleason 3, Gleason 4, 3+4, sometimes MRI can miss those really. It underestimates the lesion size also. MRI says a 12 mm focus, in reality it could be 24 mm. So up to 2.5 times, but then you can increase your ablation zone and overcome that issue. And there is really no consensus whether high-risk tumors should be offered focal therapy, but an early high Gleason tumor with a small tumor volume, I think yes. It's just your institutional preference. There are people who have done it, though in low numbers. So the latest EAU guidelines, they still say that offer cryo or HIFU in a clinical trial setting, but I think this can change because HIFU has not really gone down. The adoption is increasing. So I think if it interested you, I mean, radical surgery, it is not the trend in any cancer that you pick up. Wherever we have grown in any cancer, be it breast, be it colon, pick any organ, people have gone less. Why should prostate be any different? So that would be my closing thoughts. Thank you.